Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for all of you to take your time to come over here and be part of this roundtable. I'm very happy to have you all of you, hosting you all of you. We're going to have a very interesting session, and the CXO Roundtable is a series that we do it across the country in almost all the cities. Different subjects and topics that we discuss every city, and we are very happy in hosting in Mumbai. Uh, we have Nishan, who's going to be the moderator for the day. Over to Nishan. Thank you again, once again.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you warmly to the Talk CXO Roundtable. Myself, Nishant Ahuja. I'm a professional actor and a lifestyle broker, and your moderator for today. So, quickly, I'd like to introduce about the CXO Roundtable. The Talk CXO Roundtable is a platform for high-profile talks and conversations with leaders and experts from diverse backgrounds on the need for ideas and innovation that transform leaders, impact organizations, and develop evolving and strategic business models. This is an initiative by the Talk, a new media and thought leadership platform. This event is brought to you by the Elegance Advisor Consultancy. The Elegance Advisor Consultancy is founded by Ms. Taylor Elizabeth, and she works with executives, entrepreneurs, and corporations to help empower individuals and teams around the world to develop effective and professional personal brands. Quickly, I'd like to welcome everybody and introduce you all. So, today we have Mr. Ravi Mishra with us, Senior Vice President HR, Advanced Material Business, a division of Grasim Industries Limited. Could we have a round of applause? Thank you so much. Mr. Janak Malkani, I'm so sorry, Mr. Janak Malkani, Executive Director, CBRE South Asia. Also, we have with us today Mr. Vaibhav Joshi, CBO, iCard Fintech Private Limited. Ms. Geeta Umameshwaran, Board Member and Head India Operations, Elepo Technologies. Welcome, ma'am. Mr. Jaswinder Arora, Head Retail, Siaram Silk Mills Limited. Welcome, sir. Also, we have with us today Mr. Yogesh Udgire, Founder, Digital Transformation Academy.
Yes. Hello.
Good evening, welcome, sir. Mr. Bhupesh Dahiria, Managing Trustee, AG School of Business. Welcome. Thank you. We also have with us Mr. Sandeep Jain, Director, HTP Global Technologies Private Limited. I hope I have covered everybody. If I'm missing somebody, ma'am. I do not have the list, complete list. Okay, I have the list. It's Mr. Ajay Thakur.
Yeah.
Mr. Ajay Thakur, Head BSc SME, Mumbai Stock Exchange. Welcome, sir. Thank you. Okay, we have got the updated list. Sure. I'm so sorry we are having this glitch. Ms. Preeti Vyas, welcome. Ms. Preeti Vyas is the CEO of Amar Chitrakatha Private Limited. Sure. And did I miss you?
Yeah, you did.
Mr. Manish Naidu. Mr. Manish Naidu, CEO, Brain Wonders. I'm so sorry and welcome. So, beginning on a very honest note, I'm grateful to be over here and I'm elated to have this discussion with you all. And before that, I would also like to introduce you all to Ms. Taylor Elizabeth, the founder of Elegance Advisor Consultancy, and she's also the presenter of the event today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Sure. So quickly we'll jump into the discussion and the Talk CXO Roundtable today, which is happening. The topic we have is empowering future teams and developing future leaders, wherein the industry leaders have gathered to discuss the importance of empowering future teams and developing future leaders. The discussion today we are going to have will be centering around the top skills necessary for team growth and development and ways to encourage effective communication, the importance of soft skills and personal behavior, the role of growth mindset, and the impact of interpersonal skills. So beginning, I would quickly want to know from you all, in if you can sum it up in 60 seconds. In your current role, what are the top priorities on talent building in the present business scenario that you look after? So beginning with, so
Okay. Pretty broad question. So, see, humans are the biggest obstacle for the growth of the business, and they are the biggest catalyst of the business. And today, or for that matter, always there has been a war for the talent. Right? So, let's say, for example, I run two businesses, and both businesses require very high-end tech talent. Like one, we are running AI in data science institution, and that is where you require top-end faculty, those who are trained on machine learning, deep learning, AI, and those kind of stuff. And at the same time, they also understand the deeper level of math. That's one challenging stuff, right? But you don't get always trained, so you have to really hire talented people, groom them, train them, right? That's one part, right? Which further can really train students. And the other businesses, which is primarily into providing the digital infrastructure for the universities, learning organizations. And that's where also we have challenge in terms of really hiring tech talent, hiring sales teams. So one end we have to really build tech products, the other end we have to really sell it to the market. Right? Both are quite in terms of challenging, right? So that's what I do every day, 365 days.
great, thank you. I feel because we have so many diverse search esteem panels from diverse fields, we'll be having such subjective uh, answers, and I'm really looking forward for that. So what would you say on that?
I would put only the challenges are three dominantly. First is in the domain of leadership development, people are not trained currently to pick up the challenges. So what COVID has done is it has put all the industries, irrespective of their size or background or education, into the startup mode, and the startup mode is still continuing. So the challenge in the leadership development is people have gotten a bit tired about, because every day new things are coming up, the challenges are coming up. So being into that VUCA mode of growth is a big challenge for leadership. That's part one. Second is leadership, as Elizabeth Taylor she told, is a mindset, and cultivating mindset has not been our in our culture per se. So that mindset development is a big challenge. So we do only when we are pushed, on when only the person is into survival mode. So that's the second part of it. And third is we don't have an ecosystem as of now. So for it is again my personal opinion, for leadership to nurture and develop, there has to be an ecosystem which will pull the person. So these three are the biggest challenges according to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I truly feel those 3 points are something we'll also be discussing it further. Before that, ma'am.
Thank you. Sure. So I think we're talking about the priorities that we have to focus on, right? So I think right sizing is something that we were looking for, not like retrenching as such, but actually getting the right number of people to do the task was skilled. Right sizing and right talent is something that we want to prioritize because we're always short of staff. An ability to accept change, be motivated to accept change, especially after the COVID era. We had a lot of people who had to work in different environments, go back home and still produce the same set of outcome, right? So that was definitely a top priority. It keeps changing, of course, every year. maybe once every 2 years, because we have to continuously improve. So in this particular year, we getting the right skills and training people and keeping them motivated throughout in order to ensure that they get the same productivity out was one of the priorities that we were focusing on.
Thank you, ma'am.
So the question was about priorities being set, is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I run a brain mapping company. It's called Brain Wonders. We have got close to 108 franchises across the country, and we hire talent on the basis of the genetic intelligence test. So for us, fortunately, hiring talent has never been a problem. But what has been seen that if you hire somebody who is born in the 70s, 80s, 90s, they have a mindset which is totally different from the mindset which is of 2000. So identifying there's those mavericks within those teams, ensuring that few of them are hard workers and they would come at time, 10 o'clock to 7, they finish their work. There are few who are pretty fast, they do not have to wait for a whole time. So managing a team of mavericks, outliers, and also ensuring that the others who are putting in their hard work, because not everybody is talented. So the priority is setting the right set of goals for both of them so that they both don't feel out of place. And India being a very diverse country, right from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, even in Bombay, we have 5 different sets of people you are listening to. So it's a huge amount of talent diversification you will have to talk to. So I think setting the right priorities for each of those territories is something which is the right priority for me as of now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jaswinder Arora, everybody knows you have introduced. So we are into a traditional business. The fabric business is very, very traditional business. So now the mindset of the people working in the industry is again a very backdated mindset. Backdated in the sense that the industry demands that kind of a mindset. So with a lot of technology coming into picture, the adaptability of a team to a new technology, because they're not very young talent who comes into this industry. They're people who are in their mid 30s, 40s, or new people who want to come into a traditional business setup. So the priority currently is adaptability of the current team to the technology what we are introducing, because it is very difficult to imbibe these technology, this mindset into the process. That's the one priority. Secondly, it has been observed that investment in people is very less to compared to investment in manufacturing or finance or something. So the priority is to invest in people. Learning and development is very important. So I would like to end it with some of it like this. So there was this finance guy. There was this sales guy. So sales guy tells a finance guy कि can I speak in Hindi also? It is okay with everybody?
It's okay. So far, it's okay. Go ahead. Please,
Okay.
please.
So finance guy, the sales guy tells the HR guy, I'm very sorry for it. So sales guy tells the HR guy, कि we need to invest, we need to train people. And so HR guy asks, कि भाई कितना पैसा लगेगा? How much money do you need? So sales guy tells, कि this is the kind of money it is required. Like, oh, so much of money. What if they don't stick to the organization? So this sales guy tells, if we don't teach them, and what if they stick to the organization? So we need to invest a lot in learning and development. That is the priority for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Also, moving to Mr. Weber.
So there are two facets of the business. One is the fintech side and one is the agri-tech side. On the agri-tech side, relatively it's very different because we have to get people to come into that side of the business. So typically, people from FMCG distribution kind of a background whom we try to get into it. And then, being a startup, the challenges are more to do with, since they come from established organizations, how are they going to adapt to a much smaller setup, far smaller setup, a startup which is only 2 years old. And that's where that entire thought process shift of a potential wealth creation that they would possibly never be able to do in the organization that they have been. So that's where we find challenge, especially also to do with the geography, because being an agri-tech, we do function into the semi-rural, rural kind of a geography, and it's difficult to convince people to go over there. On the fintech side of things, again, it's more to do with product knowledge, regulations, and so on, and more especially because a lot of bankers who were actually ready to come onto the fintech side of things now are not, and a lot of fintechs who have just raised money based on valuation, people are sitting on mad packages to get them to a realistic expectation that hey, just come down, settle. Those are some of the challenges that we face.
Thank you.
Don't think I need the mic, hopefully.
I think you're good.
I find it extremely uncomfortable. But I think I'm part of the services industry, and that's very different from what we've heard so far. I think, where I work for a firm where we have no product, right? It's pure services. And while goals, training is all very, very important, I think as leaders, if we don't unlearn, and I heard you using that word, I want to learn more. I would rather say, if we don't unlearn the way we grew up and reached whatever leadership level we did, and don't understand how to deal with our colleagues who are significantly younger, significantly different in their approach, far more risk-taking ability as individuals. If we don't unlearn that, we're always going to have a bias towards them. And the minute we have a bias towards an individual or a group of individuals who do not think like you, does not make them incapable of being the next set of leaders. So for me, it starts at my end. If I don't unlearn and relearn every morning, and Mr. Naidu, I would hate to be in your job, being very honest with you. To pick people on their brain power, in my industry, I'll get nowhere. Because in the services business, please don't get me wrong, it's not personal, this is purely my opinion. If you don't have the fire in the belly to do whatever, in the services business, you'll find it very difficult to reach the level that you'd want to reach. In the product, manufacturing, sales also, because the sales you've got a product at times. But in the business that I'm part of, and someone mentioned about being born in the 70s, 80s, 90s people, and that is true, right? But unfortunately, those people are not the ones who are hiring necessarily year on year from business schools. I've just come from a colleague who's left us today after 6.5 years. I hired him out of business school. He's moving to one of my peers. And I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say, I don't understand the individual. And I think if we don't start unlearning the way we think life should be or the way we think business should be done, we will not, in my opinion, do justice to anybody else. Sorry, that was just my part. Again, no offense.
I think I'm seeing the first MOU signed between us.
Thank you. And I guess that is the beauty of this CXO Roundtable talk, that we have this diverse insights coming across. So over to you, ma'am.
Yes, hi. So I represent and work at a legacy business. We are a 55-year-old company, and I always say that I am the current CEO because there were CEOs before me and there will be many after me, and the team is the current team. And our priority is to, similar to what you said, a very old way of working versus a very new way of working. Our youngest employee is 20 years old. The oldest employee is 63 years old. So the priority and the challenge, and whether it's a product side or the people side, it's the same. To align all of this onto a common goal, to ensure that today's generation of customers and readers will still find our product meaningful and relevant. So yeah, that's priority.
Thanks a lot. Yes, sir.
A very good evening to all of you. I represent Capital Market, Bombay Stock Exchange, and perhaps everybody must have heard about it. We have learned from it.
Not and born. Or still learning.
Still learning and learning.
The roller coaster ride goes on.
Yeah, and it's the best place to create wealth. So I think I have been in BSE Bombay Stock Exchange for last 26 and a half years, and prior to that 3 years in other organization, Stock Holding Corporation and Vadodara Stock Exchange. Whereas exchange is the place where we have seen maximum disruptions. We have seen continuous changes in terms of technology, in terms of way of trading, in terms of the materialization of security. And only one thing what we found here is that change is the constant thing, and we have to adapt and adopt the changes. And I can say with pride and honor that all our officials, maybe young, old, I don't know what is the difference of their age. There are people with 60 years old also, there are people with 25, 26 years old also. But of course, everybody has adapted and adopted the change, and that's how this stock exchange has kept on moving efficiently. Of course, there are challenges, people join, attrition level is high, but that's the part and parcel of the life. We have to keep on bringing new people, new talent, and we know one thing: loyalty is the least thing that we can expect from anyone. And if somebody expects that the loyalty and trust will come, it comes very hard, and you have to carry with that. And like that, we have carried on in our organization also. We keep on bringing the talent. Once they nurture, they have left. Some have remained with the organization, but we carried on, and we have very successfully carried on. We have never kept any grudges with anyone. If somebody goes, well and good. If someone comes, they are well accepted and welcomed in the organization. And very well this organization has kept on going, and today we are fifth in terms of market capitalization in the world. So I have no grudges. I am a very proud member of Bombay Stock Exchange. Recently, in my leadership, we have launched SME and startup platform. SME platform is doing very well. We have almost 500 SMEs listed, created a market capitalization of 70,000 crores, and we are adding many more SMEs. And perhaps I have traveled across the country. I have seen the SMEs very closely. All of them very Yudhishthir and Harishchandra. But now, ultimately you have to run the business with money, and that's very important. We are ensuring and assuring that the companies, the investors, and everybody should have access to good debt and equity funding. So that's how we are contributing to the growth of the nation. Thank you.
I think two things which we very heavily lay stress on, and that is what we've been doing for the last 30 years. And the one thing which we want each and every team member to develop is sense of ownership. He doesn't own a job. He owns client's mandate. That is one thing we drill very, very clearly. And the moment we do that, our all training programs, induction programs, interactions are completely built around ownership of, say, not enterprising attitude, but definitely the ownership. Subsequent to this, secondly, what we try to develop, the output of this has to be collaboration. You have to collaborate. There is no department, whether it is sales, whether it is HR, projects, whether it is engineering, whatever projects we have, nothing works without collaboration. I'll give you a very good instance. In one of the cases in our company once, there was some kind of a tussle between two departments. So the leader, the CEO took a wonderful, he just shut down one of the departments. He just shut down. There was money loss. But the department was just shut down for a day. They all were told to go on leave for that particular day without information. The message was driven clear. Whatever be the deliverable, all the departments have to collaborate. It's something that's story of a stomach and all the parts of the body fighting with each other. Yeah, it was drilled down very clearly. So two things which are a priority, which actually become challenges for us, but later on they become the most, the ROI is wonderful, is if we can drill down the sense of ownership of whatever work each and every employee is doing. And secondly, a sense of collaboration. And once these two things are taken care of, let me tell you, issues like retention, skill development, everything is taken care of. Thirdly, we believe there are only natural leaders. So we don't try to develop leadership. We don't develop leadership at all. What we do is we just give challenging projects. Whoever shines out of those challenging projects is made for it. Yeah, made for each other, something like that. And we dwell on that. These three things are something which is very, very close to the culture we try to perpetrate, or what I have done personally in last several years. Obviously, I have learned it from the organization that I worked for initially. But yes, these three things I worked initially: ownership, collaboration, and finally leadership and natural trait.
And so we are also from the same segment of business. Most of part of my career I did the manufacturing in different businesses, like from cement to metal to chemicals to petrochemicals and all that, including textiles. First thing is the learning is very important. These days, if the company doesn't believe in the industry, on that learning and development, companies are going to fail. Uh, Liability you are going to create if you are not investing. So liability is a secondary, but liability will be more costly if you are not investing. And we are doing a lot in the development as society. Coming back to the point that talent building and priorities. I saw one party that we have been thinking if he is a talent, he will become a leader. So most of us understand. So CEO is the most talented guy because he's going to become leader. So we give regard and respect to all the CEOs and CXOs. So that is not going to happen in future, but I understand. So there is also a factor of the subject matter expert. So the business depends not only on the CEO but also the product someone is bringing on the table. So if the someone is designing the architecture of the iPhone, so maybe Steve Jobs, Tim Cooks may have a larger stake with him than the other six leadership. And so coming back to the how do we segregate the talents apart from that leadership role. So whenever you go for a DSC or any consulting firm, so they are trying to speak all the time. We are going to create the leadership. So everybody, the talent is from IT, RIM, or Harvard, Stanford. So they are leader and leader have a completely different community. So that segregation is sometimes you see. So in a current the new generation, there are many boys and girls who are coming from the campuses. They are not very curious that the only best job is a CEO or CXO because in our time, or my time I can say, not our is objectionable. So it is not only CEO or CXO who is delivering the business. So there are many subject matter experts. Of these youngest new generation is also attentive towards that. Hey, I work for 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 days in a week. I have a wonderful life. I don't want to run with the cap of the CEO, CXO leadership. Coming back to the point of the segregation of talent based on the aptitude and skill set and capability. So there may be a good managers. Managers are equally important. A good executor. So you are a fantastic CEO, but you don't have a good executor to put in the Thailand or Germany or the US. You are going to fail despite having a great CEO. So every role is important. So you have to build a talent based on the segmentation of the talent, what the talent have inherited, what you can develop and what you cannot develop in a talent. So that segregation is important. And common theme and dispute and conflict happening, which is very natural, like in a manufacturing, there certain 3 to 4 generations are working together. So someone who has never had the keys in their life, and you are working with a guy who has never had a pen and pencil. So how to collaborate, particularly in manufacturing? It's a big challenge. So we are large businesses in the manufacturing, whether it is metals or cement or all that. So collaboration is a big challenge to retain the talents and providing an ecosystem where both can develop and grow beyond the mindset of the CEOs and leadership. Second, collaboration with so many angles. Collaboration within team, outside team, collaboration with the technology and platform. So if my daughter is saying why you are buying a laptop with so much GB and why don't you work with the cloud? Why are you wasting the money and this laptop will be going to the wind? So collaboration with technology, collaboration with people, collaboration with the ecosystem. So I may be very fancy to bring a very good guy from IIT or Stanford, but whether they will be matching to your ecosystem and they will be able to deliver. So collaboration with lots of issues. Second is the alignment with the culture, system, and need of the future.
So these are the few issues which we are confronting day in day out, and when building the talent, these are the priorities.
I would like to question, how can we encourage effective communication within our teams, both internally and externally? And if there is any barriers, so how can we overcome them? So I'd like to direct this question to Preeti ma'am, you, if you would like to answer.
Sorry, my son was just calling me about something. So.
No, ma'am. No worries, I'll repeat the question. So we're discussing about communication, and I would want to know that what could be an effective ways to encourage communication within our teams internally and externally, and if there is any barriers, so how can we overcome those barriers?
So I think the most important thing when it comes to communication is to continuously, non-stop, keep on creating different forums and platforms and opportunity for people to communicate. So whether it's, I think talking about COVID and how we all got used to working from home, I think the physical collaboration space is really important. The face-to-face, the meetings, the discussions, the laughter, the camaraderie, that comfort when it comes in is what leads to effective communication. And to create a culture which is such an open culture that people don't hesitate to bring issues up. Because when they come up, you confront them, you deal with them, you can move forward. It's when people suppress feelings, that's when the politics begins and that's when all the problems start. So creating that really open environment where people, starting from the leadership, so whether it's department managers or team leaders or the CEO, you're always available, you're always accessible, anybody could come up to you. We have a organization-wide family group, a WhatsApp group where there is, people are sharing photographs, news, updates, congratulating each other. All these things I think are really important to create that culture and environment which aids open communication.
Tell what they want to tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we should not. We should continuously have a team, which in our organization we have team alignment meeting, what we call as TAM. It's a continuous process where people come and they start opening up. For during the first TAM meeting, few people will participate. Second, third, then when it becomes a regular process, then everybody starts contributing towards the thing. So building a confidence in them that you are heard of, everybody is listening to you. Secondly, whatever suggestion you have put on the box has been, if it is worthy the use, it has been used, and our internal communication has been sent to all the people that these are the suggestions which has come from this particular person, and it has been brought into practice and all, and appreciate the people who have given such kind of suggestions and all. So it's a continuous process.
So this is somehow like making them comfortable and making them feel valued so that they open up and they come up to us. Also, Mr. Bhupesh, would you like to add on this?
Yeah, so I think what we have been practicing, so the most important thing that if you gave a suggestion, so are we just listening for the sake of our listening as a HR policy, or we are really genuine we mean to really listen to you? So I think what has really worked for us that yes, we listen and we act upon that immediately, right? And we have created a environment wherein there is no hierarchy, and the contribution goes to one of my mentor, Dr. Gangopadhyay, who is one of the best behavioral scientists, and he happens to be our dean. So there though, so he says the organization is more important than the individual being, right? So the show must go on, right? And hence there should not be any bureaucracy, right? So irrespective who you are, you can really reach to anybody. You can express your opinion. As a CEO of one of the segment, I have always given freedom to my team that come in my room, prove that I am wrong, I am idiot, show me how this thing need to be done. And we mean that. And people come, sometime it is difficult for you to digest when like a 20-year-old kid comes to you and tell that yes, what you're doing is wrong, right? So uh, control your ego, get into healthy debate, right? Either you convince or get convinced. These are the only rational uh, say thought will really work, right? So you can't really boss around that, look, I have more gray hair than what your age, right? I did my degree when your father was not born.
Yeah.
So those kind of statement has got no meaning, right? Because a 20-year-old kid with chat GPT has access to more knowledge than what you have, right? And he has more energy to really work and dig and show you the solutions. So I think experience in our generation, which was more important, like say 3 years back or even a year back, that all of a sudden in 6 months' time, this experience has become absolutely useless. Right? Some of us will have a hard time to really digest, but acquisition of knowledge, which is essentially experience, has come down to absolutely a zero value, right? So, and I think as a leader, most of us, we need to really understand and grab this idea, and this will really actually open up the door for the communication. We also did one practice that we opened up a Zoom channel. So though it is a hybrid environment, everybody is locked on to Zoom, right? So whatever they want to really communicate, their multiple team room, they can really come and directly communicate with anybody, right?
May I ask a follow-up question
Yeah,
to that?
please.
Because it's fascinating, actually. So if the knowledge acquisition has gone
Yeah.
to zero sum at this
Right.
point, we have nothing.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then is the strength as managers or as CEO CXOs is more in judgment, is in mindset, is in acknowledgement of situation, flexibility. Where is the value? Where is our value then now? If the
So,
experience is at
yeah,
zero.
so I think if I really look back when I was in second year, right, I became the director of our theatre group called Parivartan, and since then I have been leading teams. And I think I used to think that I am leading because of a knowledge, right? And I have been proven wrong, right? I have been leading because people could trust me, right? My student don't value me because I am knowledgeable. They value me because I can really tap on their back that what you're doing is right. You will be successful. And a lot of students in convocation ceremony, other in private forums, came and told me that, see, when you were interviewing me, you told me that yes, you can do it. And that stuck to me, and that's the reason I am successful. So most of us, we know that why we are not successful and why we are successful and why we are stuck, because of those psychological blocks in our head. It has nothing to do with knowledge. Knowledge is hygiene. I am not undermining the importance of the knowledge. Like if I am teaching AI, if I don't know the AI, I will become a joker, right? Nobody will give me any due regard in the class. But I think in this era, when we have created a trustworthy knowledge network, which everybody has access, now where we as a leader will come, just like a parent. You don't value your parent because they are more knowledgeable. You value your parent because they can stand by you. You trust them. No matter what happens, they will stand by you. And I think that is one single most characteristic I have led my team in most of the time.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That's some hard practice, but definitely of great work to be someone where people can fall back on you.
Yeah.
Great. And Mr. I'd like you to shed some light on the interpersonal skills. How can we probably effectively implement in ourselves and our team members, and how can it impact on building teams, encouraging growth, and supporting the success of the business?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. Actually, that's a really great question. We could be here for a very long time, but okay. Well, actually, it's been answered a little bit. In fact, you just answered quite a bit of it. I would say interpersonal skills and building teams and taking, for example, I loved taking ownership. So taking ownership, which is all mindset actually, and building and having trust is also mindset, trust in self, trust in team, and ability to trust that you will be wrong, ability to trust that you will have to learn, ability to trust that it doesn't undermine your ability to lead or your ability to own the position and the title and the salary of where you are. If you are wrong, you are still the same. It's all in the mindset. So I would say interpersonal skills is really all about relationships, and it's all about mindset, relationships, and flexibility, which is what I coach actually and constantly. So it's all about having a certain type of relationship. So as I mentioned before, and I'm so sorry for the people that are hearing this for the second time, maybe even the third time, it comes down to relationships. So everything that you've talked about is relationships, especially starting in your industry. Everything is in relationships. When you're in the service industry, everything is in relationships. When you're not in the service industry, when you're working in intellectual things space, where you're even in AI, when you're working with your front and your back, so people that are doing the tech part and people that are doing sales, it's all in relationships. It's how business is made. It's also how teams are formed. It's how a company is successful. It's how they're able to transition in all these different ways. We're talking about, some people are talking about challenges within the market. Some people are talking about challenges within generational challenges within your own sales force. Some people are talking about challenges because of competition or because the industry isn't adapting to a current technology, whatever. It's all those are going to be solved, magnified, made significantly worse, or even better. You're going to be able to set yourself apart because of the relationships that you build. And the relationship comes down to the trust. It comes down to the emotional intelligence. It comes down to a lot of these soft skills that we really need to develop. I think people, the current generation, this is the interesting part. So millennials and D and et cetera, generations, they have they have a different perspective. They come with a different value system. Their value system is very different. They also come at it with interpersonal relationships is actually quite important. Their mindset is very, very different. The awareness of the mindset is someplace that my generation, previous generations, wasn't there. They didn't have to consider. It wasn't something that they had actually taken into effect. And this affects everything. It affects all relationships, all the communications, all the thought processes, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that when it comes to the importance in communications, it is the fundamental importance. We had spoken earlier about how our communication is about between 75 and 90% nonverbal. And I don't know how, some of you I know are working in multiple countries. And so imagine you're speaking in English, potentially, maybe you're also speaking within India in many different languages, but there's so much room for miscommunication. Now imagine you have generational issues there as well. And in addition to that, you also have stylistic issues, or we have mindset issues that are complicating everything. So within communication, if you're not aware of if you don't have the emotional intelligence, if you don't have the mindset, if you're not aware of your own behavior, your self-awareness, if you're not aware of those around you, if you're not listening. So we were asking about communicating before. For me, honestly, the biggest thing about communication is actually learning how to communicate. I don't know if we ever coach about what it really means to communicate. Having platforms to communicate is fantastic, like different digital platforms, in-person platforms, systems, programs, trainings, etc. That's fantastic, but do you actually talk, and in generation to generation it shifts, but like what does it mean to actually communicate? Communicating has much more to do with listening than it does with actually speaking. It is much more doing with observing and being aware of the multiple layers and dynamics within the people that you're working with, so that when you're communicating, because you could be saying one thing and not being heard whatsoever. And that miscommunication is incredibly costly to organizations. I mean, that's actually, from a metric, there are metrics on calculating the cost of miscommunication. It's in the large corporations in the United States, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars per year. That's what's lost by miscommunication. So I would say that interpersonal skills support communications because it brings awareness, it brings the mindset, it brings these softer skills, these emotional intelligence. It brings learning how to listen, how to actively listen. I don't know if everybody's familiar with actively listening versus just listening to respond. As leaders, you must do this, but even on the lowest of level, even somebody that's working in a factory and they're not managing anyone, they're just managing themselves, learning how to rethink about listening, about communicating, about understanding, taking that ownership that we were talking about. I mean, these are all very big parts of communicating, and I think it all boils down interpersonal skills, and it all boils down to the soft skills and to, again, the mindset. It will always go to the mindset, and we have many different challenges here, as we had talked about, generational technology, et cetera, and the competition, but I really think it comes down to the mindset that you were talking about. Thank you.
So I have a question.
Please.
Just very curious on the metrics of miscommunication. How is it measured?
So the number that I gave is based upon a certain number of employees, U.S. numbers first. I just want to be very clear about that, because the data is only for U.S. Thing. They basically go into lost business, so they calculate on lost business. They cost inefficiency. They lost dropped product that they weren't able to use, things of that nature. Overtime calculation. That this is basically how they came up with that number. Now, granted, this is with a certain number of employees and the data that they actually have the data and they're counting, but it's a huge amount of because of miscommunication within teams. Imagine like sunk projects that can't go forward because of loss. If you're in a product industry, product that has to be destroyed or et cetera. So they've counted it that way because of miscommunication and because human beings are wonderfully imperfect. This is the thing. We're wonderfully imperfect. This is where the talent comes from. This is where the ingenuity comes from. This is what we should be embracing. But because of that, we are definitely not communicating in the same way. I mean, as somebody that used to manage 22 different markets, I can tell you, and usually with translators, communication has nothing to do with the words that are coming out of your mouth. Communication has so much more to do first with bias, one's own bias first, before everything else. One's own frame of reference, the point in which they're looking, and then also their ability to listen to actually what's being said and to read what's being said without bias, because that's impossible unless you're doing this new system that you have with the no bias. But it's you have to be able to acknowledge your bias, process the bias, realize that when that bias is in front of you and you are therefore acting on that, to be able to remove yourself. So to be that is, in my opinion, honestly, that is leadership, is when you can actually see the bias, because it will be there, and you take a step back and you're like, okay, I'm seeing the bias, it's here, but I need to be able to take this, so I'm going to remove myself from it. This is honestly, I think, the biggest thing when it comes to really communicating and being successful in doing so.
Can I add something?
Please, sir. Of course.
Just to support what you said and the question which the lady asked, we had a very, very huge sales team with us.
Yeah.
And everyone had their own islands of information in Excel sheets, documents, mail. So at the leadership level, we thought, let's introduce Zoho, a CRM. And immediately there was a chaos. Yeah. So we said, how do we handle communication? So we got the team together. We went out on weekend. And we explained to them what will be the benefits in terms of incentives and growth when a system like CRM is introduced enterprise-wide, and the amount of time saving that will go, and the MIC that will come up. So when there is some kind of enterprise-wide change and if it comes top-down, it works very well. Whatever be the bias, whatever be your bias, you have a choice. You live with it or you ignore it. Ultimately, as someone said, organization is bigger than the individual. So I think at top level, a lot of effort is needed if there is some kind of enterprise-wide change. And when we see any kind of a transactional issue, then we just leave it to the manager to handle it. This was on the internal side. Now, how about the external side, on the customer side? You spoke about relationships earlier, very, very significant. So there was this client, first time when I had gone to London, and we had a client, and we also spoke about generations. I was about just 30, 32 at that time. So I had a prospect who was around 65. Englishman, tough, Mr. Christopher Pajan, I still remember. So he had the sales process done over here very neatly. When I went and when I saw him, I was like, oh my God, he's like Hardy of Laurel and Hardy, big with him, Beverly, etc. When we discussed out the details, the first 2.5 hours, we didn't discuss business at all.
Yes.
I think as the chief of the company, he was trying to assess whether we can relate, being from different cultures altogether, India and this. And believe me, in 2.5, after exactly around 100 or 120 minutes, he asked a question, Sandeep, why are you here? And then we had to say, this is the process. I didn't understand anything, but I can tell you what I do. And I think we can work because we can connect and talk.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was very important, interpersonal relationships, everything that you said.
Yes,
is
exactly.
very, very important. Even when it's a client crisis or an internal crisis, communication is the key. So if you are if you've really done something bad on a multi-million-dollar project, and you get a 100-page report saying that this is how, and this will be the penalties, it is the communication and relationship which brings everything out on the team. Very valid.
I think more than communication, is the miscommunication that gets lost. And And you know, mostly it's the sense of insecurity among the employees that creates all the problems. You know, whenever you try to improve something or you try to bring some new system or something, if it is not communicated properly, then some sort of insecurity arises among the employee, and then all sorts of chaos starts happening. So I think it's very necessary for CEOs and CXOs to take everyone into confidence and communicate it properly. Okay, you know, we are seeing a lot of training program and etc. happening, but still, what we are finding that happiness quotient is many of the times low in many of the organizations. They are efficient people, they are getting good salary, good packages. Still, they have the tendency to leave the organization. So I think one, the communication need to be proper, like the sense of insecurity should be ruled out within the organization, and miscommunication, as far as it should be, curtailed, it needs to be properly and effectively and transparently communicated to the top, to the bottom of the ladder. And I think that things will start moving. We all are under our own bias, we all are under our own ego. Whatever we think is right, we try to impose upon others. I think that's sometimes, or most of the times, create problem in the organization.
So that is where you will have to, the matrix works in.
Yeah, there is a rule that is just
It's very mandatory
Yeah.
because the tech guy is brilliant, You tell him he won't know. You type it across, you will know because that's how he has been programmed in those 5 years of 6 years of engineering.
Yeah.
So tech is a different challenge altogether.
This is learning, and this is a wonderful example of learning how to communicate, what it really means to communicate. Because you just actually gave another example, which we didn't talk about, which is actually learning communication style. So if it's one, it's verbal, nonverbal. It may literally be a visual learning, but it could literally be coding writing, versus somebody else telling you something. So it's very different. I mean, learning how to communicate and first listen, your bias first, but then the listening and the frame mindset, but then also the style and the vehicle also. Vehicles also for communication
So
are
there are
huge.
3 different types of, just to add it up. There is one is auditory, obviously,
Yes.
then is auditory, then the
Yeah.
second is visual.
Yes.
That's why you could remember visually much more.
Yes.
Third is kinesthetic. So
Yes.
somebody says, forget all this, I just type
Type.
it and do it. And then someone would learn only through concept. So if they understand the concept, they would understand it.
Yes.
Fourth type is the one which the gentleman just said, it is motive.
Yes.
So if the motivation is very strong, they learn through motive. So you
Yes.
have this primary and this binary secondary learning styles.
Yes. Yeah, it's fascinating. It is really very fascinating. Excuse me, sir.
I'm glad that the topic communication ignited such a great communication over here. And also, I feel good that we also got a point of mindset on the table. Where I feel mindset is very important because as team leaders, it's a very challenging job. And either we can dwell in the misery of challenges, or if we have a good mindset, we can probably analyze, evaluate, and take a calculative measure to overcome it. So, Mr. Janak, I would like to ask you, how can a growth mindset or a good mindset help us and our team members to overcome any challenge and achieve success?
If you don't have challenges, you won't succeed.
True.
Start with that. I think it comes down to, and again, I speak from the industry that I'm part of. And I know you talk about knowledge being easier to gain. The reason you have leaders and you don't have flatline structures in the service industry probably is also because the library of solutions one comes across over time, which we call experience, allows you to face those challenges knowing that there could be an innovative solution coming out of it. Allowing yourself to let your team make mistakes, and not having an SOP for everything. I'll give you an example. We recently got an RFP from a large bank. I'm MBA driven, so I'm going to retain certain facts about it, saying we want to set up a new captive capability center in Bombay for about 10,000 people. And this same bank, not very long ago, had done something similar. We're thinking to ourselves, saying, they're going to have 20,000 people working in Bombay, which is not the most heard of thing right now. But nonetheless, we will, it's important, it's business for us. And a lot of my seniors, you all got into this Zoom call and trying to figure out how to address this. And one of my team leads turned around and said, you know what, they're going to have this campus ready in 4 years' time from today. And why don't we go out and talk to the kids who've been working with us for 2 years and ask them how to approach it? Because they've got friends who are going to graduate in about 2-3 years, so they're seniors. What are their thoughts on what they're going to look at when they graduate? Because these are the same kids who are going to actually get employed by this bank at some level. So while some of our peers focused around the way the real estate market is and where supply is coming from and the whole hybrid and the metro plan and infrastructure, which everybody knows it's hygiene, we went out and said, if you're going to get these many people on board in 27, you're going to start hiring in the next 2 years. And you're going to start hiring from A, B, C, D. This is the trend that we've seen of people being hired. This is the kind of characteristics that they want, or these employees will want to see. And, we built a story around that. And, touch wood, you got appointed. And to answer the question, it's like I said, you can't have an SOP for everything. You've got to let people express themselves. I know it comes back to communication at some level, but, my personal belief, if you're going to sit there and say, I did this 5 years ago and I did it so well 5 years ago, well, 5 years from now, the world has changed. We went through 2 years of lockdown. Trust your team and they'll start trusting you. Trust that you've hired them or they've come and joined you, not as an individual, but for what the firm stands for what the organization stands for. And my global chairman always said, he says, obsess on the outcome. So don't obsess on the process, don't obsess on the client name, obsess on the outcome. And I think that's something which I'll take to my grave.
Well, nice. I think that was something that would really help others as well. Also, Mr. Ravi, would you like to add on to this topic? Something on this?
Your question on the growth mindset, right?
Yeah, a growth mindset.
So, for the growth mindset, the current generation, what we are working with, they have a very different sense of a growth mindset compared to our earlier generation, and mostly in the manufacturing and corporate roles. So they are moving on the ladder very fast. This is what their mindset is, that I have to work for, say, 45 or 50 years. Within 50 years, we have to complete the whole life cycle of the aspiration, whatever they have made in the career. So accordingly, they are growing very fast in the different dimensions. Whether it is communication or strategy or functional domain, jumping from one role to another. So organization is also struggling to provide so many quicker role of, these students who have come from the campus, they don't want to work for more than 2 years in a particular role. So organizations have a challenge to create some multiple role and the growth trajectory for them, and this is how, unless we are going to provide them, they are going to jump out of the ship. So what we are investing on them, it will go into the wind. So we are working our system, changing the model of the business, how to provide the growth. So for example, in Aditya Birla, we have many verticals from one industry to another industry. So we are able to absorb because of that reason. Otherwise, this is a very challenging to how to manage the growth mindset of the employees with lots of insights and opportunities.
So how did you solve it? You had relay system, like somebody who has probably a process of not working more than 2 years, you set a relay for them for only 2 years job, and then somebody who is there for a longer amount of time takes it over?
No,
how do you solve it?
So now we at a different career stage, like self-control managers, and different career, we have 4 to 5 major career stages. So if you have joined, for example, say cement business in Siemens XYZ, So if you are at early career stage, after 2 years you can apply for the capital or finance or retail or anywhere. So whenever there will be any vacancy, first it will be displayed on our internal portal. So an employee can apply and he will be interviewed, but the job will be continued. So maybe today I am working in the cement at the remote place in the Gujarat, and tomorrow I'll be working at Bangalore in the Aditya Birla Capital or Aditya Birla Sunday. So first preference is given to the internal, and even overseas. Almost 20% we are providing the opportunity to guys to go to overseas project for 3 years. So we have limited for 3 years stint for the overseas project for most of the guys who are in the.
So that's how you retain the talent.
That is how we are. Otherwise they will jump. Otherwise today no engineer is going to work for a remote place in the metals or cement or all that. Engineers mean city. I'm an engineer because I have to.
So on growth mindset,
Yeah.
I just want to share a really nice phrase that we use, which is the power of the word yet, right? So when you say that, oh, we can't do this, you just add the word yet at the end. So we can't do this yet, or we don't know how to do this, or we haven't done this. So growth mindset is just about you haven't done it yet, and this is so powerful, whether it's as a parent or
Yes.
as a leading a team. Encouraging people to try things and say, even if you fail, it's fine, it's that you haven't got it yet. So 18th October, I think, is International Day of Failure.
Yes.
So we actually celebrate that in the company. It's an annual tradition.
Yeah.
Everybody shares, we laugh loudly at the things that we thought were going to work and how terribly we failed.
Yeah.
And there's so much of freedom in that, a minute you share and you're able to all laugh together. And then of course there's some learning that comes out of it, saying that no, we did do these 3 things right, or we did learn this, that we won't repeat this mistake the next time.
So in fact, as a coach, I would say that there actually is no failure. I
Absolutely.
personally don't believe in failure. So the word exists. And I also would like to say, as a coach, I believe that there are worlds behind words. So the fact that you're using the word yet is really important, but failure I actually don't believe does exist. There's failures of systems. Systems fail. I mean, there are failures of systems mathematically and everything. But that being said, I don't believe in it because you learned. So if there's something learning from it, then there's no failure. There's something that didn't go exactly as planned, or many
the
things.
Outcome wasn't
It wasn't exactly what you wanted, but it
successful
failed.
people have failed the maximum time.
Yeah, of course.
If
Of
you
course.
see the history,
Correct.
you'll find.
Yeah, fair. But to embrace it in the language
The
that you're
failure
using.
means experimenting with something.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
As long as you keep on experimenting and you keep on learning from it,
Yeah.
if you don't learn, then it's of no use.
But
But
that growth mindset comes when there is an environment that allows
Encourages that,
for
yes.
people to take risks and try things and not be afraid of the outcome, not
Yeah.
going exactly as you hope.
Exactly. Yeah.
And on the lighter side, that's a matrix day as well. You will know how much business you would have lost on
Yeah.
that. Now that we know about it.
Absolutely.
One thing we do for growth mindset, and we do it very fiercely, you bring the concept of gross margin in everything that we do. We equate everything at the end with money. So we tell them, Chat GPT is here, but it will not get you sales. Chat GPT is here, but it cannot execute anything. It's ultimately people who are going to deliver. Systems will not deliver anything. Systems are enablers. They will help us in decision making. But ultimately, people, if they understand, end of the day, the organization will grow only if people's contribution make it grow. There is no magic wand. Even customers, like the gentleman said, 10,000 people, 100,000 people, whatever may come to the table, ultimately the team has to deliver it. So team has to take the call. Again, the ownership, collaboration comes into the play and equate it to money. End of the day.
we are hearing so much about ChatGPT.
Besides soft skills.
Actually, in capital market, ChatGPT will not teach you how to earn money or
Yeah.
Wait for few. Wait.
That's not done yet.
I never worry about this. These things will keep on happening. When computer has come out, the people said that no, the whole world will go.
Exactly.
It has continued.
So that is a growth mindset.
That is the growth mindset. We need to be very positive.
Exactly, and as ma'am mentioned, the word yet. Also, I think you would resonate it more because you don't phrase failure as anything. I think I've heard you talking where you say you rather phrase it as if I haven't fairly succeeded yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is what you phrase, right?
Yeah. Or actually, I have succeeded because I failed. This is because I learned. There's always, for me, it's there was always an opportunity, and not to be positive or pessimistic, negative or whatever. I'm very realist, actually. As I'm a realist, probably above everything else, pragmatic and realist. But it's not that I'm trying to say there's always a silver lining. It could be really awful. It could be like miserable. Like I really, and you feel the emotional intelligence part is you feel a certain way about it. It's not that you can become a robot and just ignore it, but at the same time, like if I don't lean into growing and saying I'm going to learn from that, then that's where I succeed. Is if I actually can face my ego or face whatever it is, the purpose of my personality type, and be like, I'm going to learn from this, and then it's success. So I'm sorry I interrupted you. Please.
That's when also that comes about where we continuously keep on trying, right? The other day I was going through two graphs which distinguish between intensity and consistency. Where the graph of intensity, it begins on a higher note but it ends too sooner on a lower note. And consistency, on the other hand, might begin at a comparatively lower note, but it goes far. The outcome and the result, it's far-fetched. So I would like you to draw attention on something where how can we, is there any specific or possible ways where we could foster this culture of continuous learning and development in our teams?
It starts with us. I mean, above all. I mean, I think everyone here. I don't need to. It would be kind of like in American language. We would say it's like preaching to the choir at this point. So it's like already. Continuous learning. I think it's again. It's going to be the mindset. So it's the mindset of the leadership. If this is part of your culture, the culture you've created, but the culture that you as a leader actually believe in. The ego is aside. That you're actually welcoming. That you create an acknowledgement culture, so acknowledgement of different ideas, acknowledgement of wanting to grow, acknowledgement of trying to be different, of facing challenges, etc. That's one part of it. Making it practical, applicable, pragmatic, and not traditional, I think is important. I think sitting people, I mean, as somebody that coaches and gives a lot of workshops, I try to make them different, applicable, useful, but not just, I'm teaching you this and that's it. I can teach you a skill. If I can teach you many skills, you can read actually many skills, or you can listen, or you can have ChatGPT tell you everything in about 5 minutes if you want. You can Google it. The thing is that will go in and out of our brain, even less photographic memory, that will go in and out of our brain. But if you actually sit there and attach value proposition to it, or shift mindset to adjust to this is why this matters to me personally, professionally, globally, long-term, whatever it is, but there's a value proposition to it. Once you do that and you teach in that way, then those skills are very easy. And I was just having this conversation in depth. I coach a lot of engineers. Engineers are actually some of my favorite people to work with, executive engineer, even though, yes, the communication can be challenging. But usually if we can just shift the mindset, especially if I can be very logical about the way in which I explain things, then it just immediately, it's like, okay, yes, and then the skill is there, and then they just apply it. They apply the skill. It just works this way. So that would be my answer. It comes from leadership, obviously. It comes from the mindset, it comes from the environment and the culture that they're putting, but it's also the way in which you're encouraging this. It's not the traditional way. I don't think works. I think what works is making it pragmatic. It's making it applicable. It's making a value system. You have to attach, and especially for the current generation, the value system is very different. The way that's applied, the way that they're thinking about it, the way that they involve themselves in it, or the way they see it useful or not useful. So it depends on how it's done. This is how I think and also it's learning is not linear. It's learning is holistic, and it's also like it's all over. I mean, it's kind of like this weird like a cloud of like shape moving around, and it's like you may think you're not learning anything, but you are. You're learning in all different ways. And I think also learning can be in receiving criticism. So you're learning and giving feedback or receiving feedback. This is a learning process. It's not just because I've pulled you into some kind of training and you're learning now, or because, I've told you to read something and now you've learned this. It's, you actually got feedback from somebody that works for you, or you got feedback from one of your team members, or you're having an open discussion, or what we're doing right now, for example, at any level. This is learning. It's different. So I think the method is really important as well.
Learn as well.
Yeah. And also you have to encourage people that we all learn differently. So we were just talking about visual learning, audio learning, kinetic. We learn differently, but in addition to that, we have to value all the ways we learn. So if we only value a traditional way of learning and we only see that as learning, then we're not giving people confidence, which is a huge problem. Then in addition to that, we're not supporting them in their journey towards learning, and we're also keeping their minds really closed, because then we're thinking they only can learn this way, and that's the only education they're going to get in their employment. But actually, they learn in different ways, and there's very different ways to look at learning and value of learning as well. So we have to make sure we acknowledge and value all of that at the same time. Please.
Thank you for that insight. And as we are coming to the end of the session,
I'll just take a minute.
Yeah.
So quickly, the talk as a platform, what we try to do with the panel, in the discussion is always, we try to capture certain crucial issues from the CXOs, and we also, basically the challenges. And on the other side, we try to find solutions or the right answers, whatever. So that's what we try to do always as a platform. So I just would like to quickly to capture, from all the panelists, probably it could be in a very one-liner or something like that. What you will be telling that as a one major challenge with your team. Can you all the panelists could give it as your view on one major issue with your teams, one major challenge that you face as a team. Can we get a quick feedback from all the panelists? You could.
Space, I think the first one right now is to do with funding winter, so valuation, and then the fundraise. The one-liner.
Okay. Please, Mr.
Wow. I'm on the spot on this one. I think one of the biggest challenges we face in the real estate community is the lack of L&D, because it's a self-motivating business. It's not a structured business.
So one of the biggest challenges for us is making the transition from being a publishing company to a content company, because the tension has shifted and consumers are now overloaded with stimulation from multiple media sources. So yes, that's our biggest challenge.
Sir, Ajay.
You were asking the challenges within the organization?
Within that, primarily what is the major challenge that you face within your team? Yeah.
So within the organization, the challenge is always, managing the balance between various departments. Okay, see, business is going in one direction, compliance is going in one direction, inspection is going in another direction, technology going in another direction. So you, as a head of the organization, and as you are continuously, because we have also to compete with our competitor, so we need to ensure, and here, every day huge money is involved. Okay, we have almost 12 crore investors registered with the stock exchange. So manage a huge pool of investors, promoters, brokers, trading, volume, all those things are itself a big challenge. And at the same time, you have to ensure that there should be balance between various departments, and we should also be able to keep our people happy. So that is the challenge.
So, Mr. Sandeep.
Twofold in the HTT Global Technology. The first project we executed was just 10,000 rupees. That was late 90s. Today, we've executed a project which is more than 15 crores. Our major challenge is, how does 15 become 50 crores? Raising to the next level. For the startup, investing tap has to stop. So we are looking at revenue generation. So telling the technical team, product is good, but market should accept it, generating revenues.
So, Mr. Mishra.
Obviously, retaining and developing the high-performing talents, because that is very important for the unknown future challenge. So how to retain, because at the one set of the business is the relationship communication. So I'm connecting all these threads. So coming back to the retaining and developing the talent, unknown futures.
Okay. So that's the challenge, adaptability for the people to accept to the new technologies. Internal and external partners both. So they're into distribution business and all. Even they need to adapt to the technology for our products and also these are the major challenges.
Well, the challenge is basically the identification of the company. For example, when we started it, it was an edtech firm. Now, unfortunately, tech, if you add it with education, most of the companies are not working in. But if you add it with fin, fintech, you add it with agriculture and agri-tech, you add it with health tech. Almost all the tech post syllabus is working in, apart from tech, because unfortunately there is a lot of technology being thrusted upon the educators who don't want it. So fortunately for us, the COVID ensured that we spent heavily on technology because there was nothing in sales. So that moved us from the transition of giving solutions to only an education company. We started giving it to everybody else. So McDonald's uses our technology to hire people. So which wouldn't have been my thought or my growth set or my mindset probably 4 or 5 years back when I started it. So understanding where we are and understanding the marvelous growth is something which generally scares you, and if you do not, if you are not in pace, it's like the Netflix moved out blockbuster. So similarly, you have to use technology as an enabler, but you have to use it very fast. Otherwise, in a fraction of a second, you are gone. You see, Navneet, for example, they were hardcore only into publications. Now they are hardcore into tech. Like any major exhibitions I see, you have this Navneet tech guy. So I think.
Thank you.
Transition.
Geeta.
For us, it is revenue is the challenge because the IT domain is just so fast growing that we have to catch up with the new standards and because otherwise the product will be outdated, right? So we have to have enough sales and reinvest in our R&D so that we can catch up with the newer technologies and be able to upgrade ourselves and then sell. So it's a vicious cycle.
Right. Okay.
I think you should be funding the next talks.
We will. See you, please.
So being from the digital transformation domain, my challenge is same as what Thakur sir said, is balancing the growth, keeping the profits and the growth of the company, and also managing the team, the culture, the attrition, whatever happens.
Okay.
So that balance, striking that balance with the growth is a challenge.
So let us keep it one single line, and then probably Ms. Taylor can have a few words with your comment on it, on both of it. Yeah, start.
So for everything important, I told my team, stop sending out emails. Okay, stop communicating via WhatsApp. Pick up the phone, call the person, walk across on the floor, talk to that person.
Okay.
And that really helped.
Okay. Thank you.
2 sentences: obsess over the outcome.
Okay.
And data is the new oil.
Okay.
Yeah. Complete transparency with the entire organization. So frequent check-ins, frequent sharing, whether it's the monthly P&L or whether it's the goals, it's the budgets, it's what's happening with the board, everything. It's complete transparency.
Transparency. Yeah.
Best systems, best ethical practices, and customer satisfaction.
Okay. So something.
Open door policy, CXO to training. Anyone can meet anyone.
Okay. That's nice. So Mishra, please.
Care for employees and friendly. This pillar we also care for the friendly. To build a bond between the organization and.
Okay. So the question is, one best practice in one line. With in the context of the team, what is the best practice that you strongly believe, whether you're practicing in your with your organization?
Principally, very integrity is very strong organization.
Okay.
Entire team. So integrity principles are very intact.
Bonding within the team. Okay. Right. Manish.
For us, it is primarily transparency of how the growth chart would be of the company.
Transparency.
So the future outlook,
Yeah.
like what ma'am said, similarly the future outlook, there is a complete transparency as to this is the way where we are projecting ourselves. That's when the team sticks and says, "Ki chalo theek hai." There's nothing as yet probably. If at all there was nothing of that particular month, but then something might come.
Thanks.
Yeah, same transparency and empowerment is something.
Okay.
Follow.
Yogesh.
Celebrate life. That's what we.
Okay. So Bhupesh.
Grow or go.
I've heard that one in many different renditions of that. But yes.
Very nice. I mean, like we're able to get a very different views.
Yes.
So Ms. Taylor, I mean, we would like to hear from you. Like, what's your comment on this? I I mean, like, you have got both the challenges as well as best practice what they do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be, as much as I do not want to keep everyone here for the next couple of hours trying to match all of those, but I would say, I mean, from what I heard about the challenges are very typical of what you're hearing all over the world, really in any market. I mean, I know in India you're going to have the details are going to be specific, but these are the challenges that pretty much everyone is facing. However, what I was really happy to hear is that your best practices are addressing those. I think you're cross-addressing them in many different ways, but I think you're addressing them, which means the mindset is there, not to harp on that, but I honestly firmly believe that's where everything starts. So it's, I think there's like a lot of opportunity, a lot of future, positivity and future, because you're aware of the challenges. The challenges are unique in detail, but they're not unique in concept and in theory or in market actually. And then in addition to that, the way that you're approaching it is in ways that will actually make an impact and will actually be able to address it, which is where we are now in the business. So that's what I would say. So it was very happy to hear, and it was really helpful to me. So thank you very much for all of your feedback, all of your comments, and the struggles and the things that you see as growth opportunities, and the challenges and the repositioning of failure, et cetera, et cetera. It was really insightful for me to hear it as well. It's also very affirming for me to see what business is doing here in India. It's really fascinating. So thank you all for being here. It's been an honor, really, to take your time, also your information, your knowledge, your perspective, which is great. And I like it because it's going to always challenge my perspective, and it's going to challenge what I'm thinking, and rethinking and then repositioning. So I do appreciate it. So thank you very much for all of your time and for being here and the insights as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and effort to come here. And it is really great hearing a lot of different perspective from people from different industry. And definitely it's going to really help in a big way in collating it. And as I said that, as a platform, we do this. We try to understand the challenges from different organizations and different leaders, as well as we try to find answers for the same. That's what we exactly do. So really happy to have you all of you today. And thank you so much, Ms. Taylor, to make this happen. I mean, today's session is all the way you are here from Dubai.
Yes, it was a pleasure. I'm so happy to be here. Always. I love always coming in Mumbai.
Thank you so much for all the support. And thank you so much once again. And kindly, we have the dinner and cocktail. Yes. So you could join us for the dinner.
Yeah, please.
And I think we can have chat. We can over the drink, we can have the chat.